Okay, let's just dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're about to explore one of the most dangerous, awe-inspiring, and honestly powerful places on the entire planet. I'm talking about offshore oil platforms. You know, the entire global economy, literally day in and day out, runs on the black gold pulled from these totally isolated megastructures. It's this incredible journey from the deep ocean floor all the way to those massive tanker ships. And understanding how it all actually works is absolutely fascinating.
I mean, think about it for a second. Your car's petrol, the gas heating your home, even the plastics in the phone or computer you're using right now, almost all of it starts out in the middle of a totally hostile ocean. But how exactly does this crude oil make its way from beneath miles of solid rock and crushing water straight into your hands? Well, it is not a simple process, that's for sure. It involves a literal masterpiece of engineering, thousands of workers, miles of pipelines, and billions, yes, billions of dollars in equipment. So to actually conquer the ocean and get to that oil hidden deep inside the rocks of the seabed, engineers have basically designed three distinct types of megastructures. First up, we have fixed platforms. These are massive structures driven directly into the seabed itself, like they aren't going anywhere. Second, we have floating platforms, which ride the water but are held firmly in place by these absolute monster anchors. And third, the FPSO. That stands for Floating Production, Storage, and Offloading Vessel. It's essentially an entire floating factory.
And we really need to talk about what it takes to build just one of these engineering marvels. Constructing a single offshore platform demands a staggering investment. We're talking somewhere between $5 billion and $10 billion, right? That is just an unbelievable amount of capital. Yet despite this enormous, eye-watering cost, these platforms are absolutely vital for meeting the energy needs of the entire world.
To truly grasp the scale of what a multi-billion-dollar investment actually looks like, just look at this number. The height of these platforms usually ranges from 300 to 600 feet. To put that into perspective for you, that makes these offshore structures significantly taller than the famous Qutb Minar. Imagine that. It's literally a towering skyscraper made of steel just sitting right out there in the middle of the open ocean.
It's crazy to think about, but a platform is essentially an isolated city at sea. You've got between 200 and 500 workers living and working there, running operations 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And because they can't exactly just commute home for months at a time, the platform comes fully equipped. It's got its own hospital, a helipad, a massive dining hall, even a gym. Plus, it's a total fortress. It has to be engineered to easily withstand terrifying 30-meter-high waves and take direct hits from Category 5 storms. No big deal, right?
All right, let's move into Section 1, the dig, 5,000 meters deep.
Okay, so now we are venturing down. We're talking potentially up to 5,000 meters deep, crossing ocean water, seabed rocks, and multiple geological layers just to finally reach that oil reservoir. To actually cut through all that rock, they use a rotary drill with a diamond or tungsten carbide bit, powered by a massive tower called a derrick. Now, as you can imagine, drilling generates insane heat and friction, and that brings us to something called drilling mud. Now, despite the name, actually scratch that, it isn't real mud at all. It's a highly advanced engineered chemical mixture. It gets pumped all the way down the drill hole to cool off that diamond drill bit, lubricate those hard rocks, and crucially, this is the big one, maintain control over the intensely volatile pressure building up deep underground.
And speaking of that intense underground pressure, it presents arguably the biggest danger on the entire rig, a blowout. A blowout happens when highly pressurized oil and gas escape entirely out of control. So, to prevent this nightmare scenario, every single platform relies on the BOP, or blowout preventer. This thing is a massive, absolutely critical emergency valve system. If the pressure ever spikes dangerously, the BOP acts as the ultimate mechanical safety net, instantly slamming the well shut.
Just to highlight why this BOP system is literally a matter of life and death, not to mention environmental safety, we just have to look at recent history. Back in 2010, on the Deepwater Horizon rig, this exact blowout preventer system failed. And that catastrophic failure resulted in the largest marine oil spill in the history of the world. It is a very stark, very real reminder of the extreme and unforgiving forces these engineers are battling every single day out there.
Because of all these incredible dangers and the extreme depths we're talking about, drilling isn't exactly a fast process. It takes roughly 60 to 100 days of continuous drilling to complete just one single well. One.
And keep in mind, a massive platform might be simultaneously drilling anywhere from 20 to 40 of these wells at completely different angles into the seabed. It's like a giant, high-stakes puzzle.
Moving right along to Section 2, Extraction and Separation, Order from Chaos.
Once the well is finally prepped and ready, the extraction process begins. But hey, if you think pure, perfectly clean oil just beautifully sprays out of a pipe, well, you are in for a big surprise. What actually comes up is absolute chaos, and the engineers have to somehow bring order to it. So the first crucial point is how the oil actually travels up the pipe to begin with. We basically have two primary methods. Often, the oil doesn't even need to be pumped. The underground pressure is so incredibly immense that opening the well is kind of like opening a shaken-up bottle of soda. The oil just rushes up entirely on its own. This is what's called natural flow. However, over time when that underground pressure drops, they have to switch to artificial lift. This means utilizing powerful submersible pumps, or even injecting gas back down into the well to manually force the oil upward.
Now, that chaotic liquid that finally arrives at the surface, it isn't just oil, not even close. It's this incredibly messy cocktail of crude oil, water, natural gas, sand, and chemicals. To fix this, it enters one of the platform's absolute most important machines, the three-phase separator drum. Inside this huge horizontal drum, good old gravity and pressure go to work. Number one, the natural gas rises right to the very top, where it's either piped away or flared off. Number two, the precious crude oil settles perfectly in the middle layer for filtering and temperature control. And finally, number three, the heavier water sinks straight to the bottom, where it gets treated before being safely released or re-injected into the well.
Once that whole separation process is totally complete, the sheer volume of output is just, well, it's mind-boggling. A standard, medium-sized offshore platform can produce anywhere between 50,000 and 200,000 barrels of perfectly separated crude oil in just a single day. Think about that volume for a second.
Which brings us to Section 3, Floating Warehouses, Goliaths of the Sea.
So now we hit a massive logistical challenge. We have up to 200,000 barrels of oil pumping out every single day. But where on earth do we put it while we wait for a transport ship? The handover process between these two absolute maritime titans is a logistical marvel. First, the oil is stored in the FPSO. Remember that floating warehouse we mentioned earlier? It's roughly the size of 3 entire football fields and can hold up to 2.5 million barrels. Its tanks have to be highly temperature controlled because, get this, crude oil actually thickens when it gets cold, which would make it totally impossible to pump. Then, a dark shadow slowly appears on the horizon. It's the VLCC, a very large crude carrier. This giant tanker is literally the size of a small neighborhood, like 330 meters long and 60 meters wide, arriving to take all that oil to global refineries.
Connecting these two moving leviathans together out in the open ocean is an incredibly delicate operation. I mean, they use extremely thick steel mooring ropes to physically tie the tanker to the FPSO. Just to give you an idea of the insane forces involved here, these steel ropes weigh an unbelievable 100 kilograms per single meter. They are heavily engineered to ensure these two massive ships absolutely do not drift apart.
This docking sequence, it is perhaps the most tense moment for the entire crew. It takes 4 to 6 incredibly long hours. Specialized marine pilots whose entire careers are dedicated strictly to this one specific task have to take over. They are constantly calculating wind, speed, and unpredictable ocean currents. Why? Because honestly, a single miscalculation or a collision between these two oil-filled giants could result in a totally catastrophic explosion. Out here, the sea simply gives no second chances.
Okay, so once they are safely moored together, a massive, flexible cargo hose connects the two vessels. Then, the control room finally sends the signal. Giant pumps roar to life to push the black gold from the warehouse ship straight into the tanker. And these aren't just your average, everyday pumps. We are talking about monstrous 5,000 horsepower pumps. Powered by those 5,000 horses, they can move 50,000 barrels. That's roughly 8 million liters of oil every single hour. The entire loading process takes a solid 24 to 48 hours to complete. During this entire time, a strict zero-spark, zero-flame protocol is heavily enforced, and a dedicated team is monitoring everything using something called custody transfer metering. Because remember, this is a billion-dollar transaction happening in the middle of the ocean. Every single exact liter absolutely must be accounted for before any of the final documents are signed.
Which brings us to the end, Section 4, the final journey, powering your world. Finally, the tanks are totally full, the billion-dollar transaction is signed off, and those massive mooring lines are released. The giant tanker, which is now riding incredibly low and super heavy in the water, slowly turns toward the horizon. It's literally carrying the lifeblood of the global economy. From here, it sails directly to refineries, where this raw crude oil will be masterfully transformed into the petrol for your car, the diesel for transport, essential medicines, and of course, the plastics you interact with every single day of your life.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final thought. The modern world feels incredibly convenient to us, right? But that convenience is built on monumental, almost invisible human effort. The next time you grab a plastic bottle or pump gas into your car, maybe take just a brief moment. Will you think of those thousands of brave workers living on towering steel islands out in the middle of stormy seas, working day and night just to keep your world moving? It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today, and keep exploring.